Alright, another day is about to start. Second coffee. If you look at the lens back here, it's just a normal cup. Put it up here, it looks like it's a frickin' bucket, right? Sarah said she glanced at the video yesterday and saw the showing of the kitten on the video, and she said my coffee looked like it was a frickin' bucket of coffee. Anyway, I'm behind 2 days. I lost almost 2 days, last 2 days, which really sucks. I think I bought 125 fence posts yesterday, got them home. So you know what that means. I gotta take those wildlife biologists, I think, on Monday. And I finally got an email out to the ladies here. Hopefully I'm going to be able to go out and meet up with them before Sunday. And on and on and on. And today I have to get the rest of the roof on and the straightening and the other framing on the poultry barn, because once fall comes, I am going to the mountains no matter what. I need it. I feel like I'm dying not being able to do it as often as I used to be able to do it. Anyways, I don't even know, as usual, I don't have a clue what's about to be read, but if you recently emailed me, it's your lucky day. It's going to be read right now. It assures I'm not reading one twice unless somebody's sucking me again. So let's get right into some emails and try to get this list going down. And this is titled, Hope Ken is Listening from Wisconsin, regarding Columbia County, New York. Second time. Hi Steve, you can use my name. My name is Jack. I've been a fan of your channel for a few years. I had several experiences regarding forest people in Columbia County, a few miles away from where Ken did. I'm an avid hunter for 40 years, hunted a lot in Montana and other states, and I love hunting in New York. I was hunting in 2017, sitting in a stand at dusk. A mature doe comes out to the food plot. I shoot and drop the doe right where it was. All of a sudden, my friend, I'll call him Joe, picked me up with the quad, and he looked odd. Joe is a retired Army Ranger, no-nonsense guy, said to me with a crazy look on his face, "Did you hear that scream?" He said, "I never heard an animal in the woods that sounded like that." I never heard it, but I knew what it was. I said nothing, kept it to myself. The next day I hunted on the ridge near where Joe hunted. It's about 3:30 p.m., beautiful day, and around 80 yards in front of me a large tree came falling down. So I had my 7mm mag with a 50mm scope and started to walk towards the tree. I was about 30 yards parallel from the root ball, by the way, was very large. I saw a black figure move at the root. Look to my scope and I see a part of an animal with long hair, not fur, but at least 8 inches of hair. So I was locked and loaded and walked up to the area. There's nothing there. It was weird. Okay, now 2019, same property, about 300 yards to the left of the fallen tree. I shot a very large buck. Next night, I wanted to film my doe tag, needed more meat for my freezer. The doe ran out of the wood line about 150 yards on my left, was too fast to shoot, so I thought I would see a buck chasing her since it was in the rut. Well, that didn't happen. I heard a scream so loud for at least 10 seconds, it went right through me. I knew what that was and said to myself, I'm going to come down the tree when I'm ready. Dark came, I didn't want to use my flashlight. Steve, that was the longest 150-yard walk back to my quad. I guess I'm in the club of no return. In 2021, on my property, 3 miles from the experiences I had, my buddy and I were getting ready for the upcoming season, and we heard a second scream on the knoll behind us. I guess I was followed. I refuse to stop hunting, fishing, and hiking, and I'm building a house there as well. I will not stop my enjoyment of the outdoors. If you're ever in my neck of the woods, feel free to get in touch with me. Be my pleasure to have you, Jack. All right, man, thanks for the invite. And believe me, if I'm ever there, everybody has sent invites to me. Normally, it's funny, when I was single and guiding full-time, I'd have a zillion invites from all over the place, from past guests all around the US, and I would just simply disappear for basically the winter and the spring, travel around the US and visit friends and go on adventures. And I did take people up on those invites. So, that being said, I would in a heartbeat, if I'm ever back there, I'll look you up. And welcome to the Club of No Return. It's a big one. I wonder how many people are in this club anyway. I wouldn't even be able to guess. I wouldn't even have a clue how many. It's a massive club. It's a massive, massive club. And that longest walk out, I can relate to that one. Tell you what, when I was looking up and that thing's up on that rock staring at me, knowing I was coming, and being so young, and but at that time I didn't know what or who it was. All I knew was I've never felt so threatened and vulnerable ever at that time, especially, and I walked so slow. It was the longest, most dead silent, except for my heart pumping, walk to get back out to my pickup truck. And then once I got to the truck, it all turned into rage. I was raging at what this person or thing just did to me. I thought it was a dude until I went back and realized just how big it was, right? But yeah, I can relate to that long walk out. And good for you to not quitting. And I strongly suggest not to automatically think that, excuse me, that these things are the enemy and they need to kill one. I don't think that's the case. I think there are some things out there that definitely are not good and have no good intentions and are probably a big threat to us, but I'm pretty certain that these beings that we predominantly talk about here aren't the enemy. If they were, I wouldn't be here right now. That's for sure. I wouldn't exist right now. So we just got to learn to live our lives as best we can and pursue our passions, do what makes us happy as much as we can. And for those who have it in them, fight for those who can't fight for themselves. It's pretty simple, isn't it? Now, before I start babbling, let's get another one shared. I got some serious chores to get done. All right. This one's an odd title. This one's titled Rudolph. Hey Steve, hope all is well with you and yours. Still listening to you, been over 2 years now. You're probably the main way for me to avoid the shit show going on around us. Here's the story. Can't mention any names because of the job. I got to visit with my nephew over the weekend, and he gave me permission to share. Here in Alabama, he is a rookie game and fish warden. He graduated from his schooling in 2021. He got to go on his first decoy deer and spotlighting stakeout. The general location, a field off a rural road, northeast and the west of the field is heavily wooded. The north side is the location of the road where the spotlighting occurs. The south side of the field butts up with the Chattahoochee River. It is also the state line. The other side of the river is Georgia. 5 wardens were on the stakeout. He said it was the first time that he had met Rudolph the decoy, a 12-point fully automated buck. He said the decoy even had lighted eyes that could be triggered to shine red to show the eye shine from a spotlight. That's how it got the name Rudolph. About an hour and a half after sunset, they could hear the running of many animals coming toward the field from the west, and all of a sudden 10 to 12 deer entered the field and stopped all around the decoy. He said they all seemed to be does and were on alert, ears and tails erect. After 10 or 15 minutes, they started exiting the field in single file to the east. Then from the west, a large buck entered the field, also fully alert. The large buck noticed the decoy, wasn't happy. My nephew said that him and his partner had a night scope between them that they were sharing. The other 3 wardens had 2 scopes. 2 were also sharing one, and the other warden had one to himself. He said that the large buck was ready for a fight and bulldozed the decoy, then turned around and put a whooping on it. He said a lot of damage was inflicted on the decoy. Yeah, it's actually pretty common with whitetails, isn't it? He said that after the one-sided fight, the buck slowly strutted to the same exit the does had used. He said he was following the buck with the scope he was using, and one other warden was doing the same with the scope he had. As the buck exited the field around 80 yards from them, they both saw the buck walk past a large oak tree on the opposite side from them. As the buck's head disappeared, they saw the whole body of the buck go airborne. Everything but the head that was being blocked by the tree. Anyway, they saw the body smack broadside into another tree and then drop. He said he froze. The other warden yelled, "Did anyone else see that shit?" He came running over to them. He said that no one had seen anything odd in that spot. No movement, no sounds. The only movement was the does walking through that spot, and then the thud the buck made as it hit the tree was the only sound. They had watched all the does walk through the same spot. They gathered themselves and all walked over to the spot, right past the decoy that none of them paid any attention to. When they got to the spot, they all saw blood splatter against the tree that the buck was slammed against, and splatter on the trees and the ground around it. They all looked for any evidence of what had done that, and any evidence of the buck. Nothing. He said that until that night he had never given sabbae a thought. That the subject had never been discussed during training or between him and the other wardens. But at that time it was discussed, and they needed to round up all their shit and leave. He said that the senior warden welcomed him into the club. Wow. That he would see and hear things that he wouldn't be able to understand. That there are things in the woods that he hasn't been informed about. To leave those things alone, if given a warning. Listen to it and leave by the way he entered the woods. Not to try to communicate, emulate, leave food for, and to never take aim at unless he felt his life was in danger. He was told that the sabbae could be a quarter mile away or 5 feet away, and he would never know it. That is, unless it wants him to know that they are everywhere and can be at any place at any time. That he could be looking at a spot, blink, and it's there, and vice versa. That he didn't know of anyone being physically hurt, but that he has heard stories, just not seen himself. But has heard stories, it has seen what they can and will do in the woods. Also what they can do to you mentally. To only talk to other wardens about the subject, not to others. To study up on the subject, learn about them. That if he plans on keeping his job, things will happen to him that he won't believe is possible. That if he discusses the subject with someone outside the job, it could lead to him being terminated. Sorry that was so long. I have a problem with making text into short stories. I guess long-winded fits me well. You have read my experiences with this subject, but while I was living in Georgia, I'm now living back in my small town in Alabama, and I love it. You didn't have to worry about mispronouncing any names, but not sure about the punctuations. Have a good one. I enjoy the shares and the scenery, also the sounds and the rents. I believe the sabbae are one of our least problems going on with our imperfect blue marble. Uh-oh, you shouldn't have said blue marble. Now you're gonna get it from the flat earthers in the comment section. Just kidding. I'd love to sit down with that league game warden and have a chit chat with him, right? And what was that sentence in the end there? Sorry. I believe the sabbae are our least problems going on with our imperfect blue marble. I couldn't agree more. Definitely one of the least of the problems going on with this shit show that is being caused and supported by those unfortunate human beings who have been supplied with the character trait, the trait of needing power and control. It's a real nasty one. It's really unfortunate that humans have had that included in their makeup. It's very unfortunate, and it is the number one source of any and all grief going on this planet today. There's more than enough food on the planet. There's more than enough natural cures for anything that ails us on this planet. I'm gonna stop right there. I could go on forever. That was one hell of a share, man. That was one hell of a share. Very interesting, very informative, and an eye-opener to what is actually going on with our game wardens. Alabama is one of my favorite places. Got a lot of fun in the state of Alabama. Very familiar with the woods in Alabama, the sounds, nature. Very interesting, and I'll bet you almost bet anything that all those game wardens are listening to this channel right now. Here's our co-host, back again, and the other little shitten's in here too. All right. This looks like a pretty long one, but I'm going to get into it. Thanks again for sending that in. That was a very, very interesting, informative email you just sent us. And thanks for the junior game warden for giving permission for you to share it here too. And I'm sure he's listening right now as well. And you guys hear more. You want to share with the people instead of thinking that you're not one of us and you're obligated to keep it secret. Share it with us, all right? Because we are the most powerful force on the planet. Most of us don't know it right now. All right. Ape-like create shoot. That must have meant ape-like creature shoot. 1875 newspaper article and more. Second co-host. Hi Steve, I don't know if this is the correct email address for stories, but it's the only one I could find. I currently live in the coastal area of eastern North Carolina, near Croatan National Forest. In eastern North Carolina, there are several large wildlife areas, parks, and large timber tracts connected almost from the northern part of the state near Alligator Wildlife Refuge to the south in Green Swamp and Waccamaw Lake. The story I wrote below is all documented through old newspaper archives, news reports, state DNA labs. I prefer that you do not use my name for obvious reasons, but if it slips out, no biggie. I'm an honest, straightforward man and I have no real issues discussing any of these facts with anyone. I wrote the original letter as a reply to someone that only mentioned 1/10 of it online to fill them in on all the facts for the area. While quite a few of the stories and incidents I have left out, I've included enough for someone to get a general idea what's going on. If you ever want to come black bear hunting in eastern North Carolina, I do not feel you will be disappointed. One of the largest black bears ever killed, based on the Crockett measuring method, was found here. It was not allowed to stand for record due to having a gunshot wound to the head. Below are just a few of some facts of what's been occurring in eastern North Carolina since August 21st, 1875. It starts with my response to someone recounting the story of a lost boy who was found 2 days after his disappearance in a large thicket that had been searched twice before. The young child, Casey Hathaway, told everyone that he had been protected by a large bear during the days before. Here's the start. A lot more to the story. I live near the area in eastern North Carolina. The child wandered off in a rural area known as Ernall, in the same area as a place known as Kip Swamp. Back in the 1880s, there were a similar incident reported in the New Bern Weekly Journal of Commerce newspaper. August 21st, 1875, that went national, being picked up by other papers in Ohio and Michigan. The area of Pungo River, North Carolina, through Croatan National Forest, Huffman Forest, and Holly Shelter Wildlife Area to the south, all have strange stories told by locals, but rarely repeated to people they do not know. Coincidence? Certainly, there are a lot of unusual events around the area and extremely thick pocosins, swamps, and large... I've never heard of that word, pocosins, P-O-C-O-S-I-N. Swamps and large timber tracts. The ones that have been recorded by Marines at Camp Lejeune are the most credible. Why would a Marine possibly risk his career? I've attached a more recent article from a paper recounting the event. I also have an archived photo of the original article from 1875. That story ended in September 1875 with the shooting and death of an ape-like creature seen by hundreds in the area. The only shooting I've ever heard of. I have that article as well. It's in the local library on microfilm as well. Researching old newspaper archives is tedious but rewarding for parties that cannot get into the field. P.S. The area of Pungo River and others I mentioned contain one of the largest black bear populations in the U.S. One needs to be aware and cautious of investigating those areas. Two of the most recent maulings and deaths in those areas were blamed on black bears and coyotes, but DNA from state labs came back undetermined and was swept under the rug. Weird stories there as well. The area is also home to a small group of endangered red wolves. Links to the paper stories listed above. I will paste those articles as well below my salutation. The stories about the recent maulings in the area and state labs coming up with a non-determined DNA result on the animal are too long to cover and include in this email. If you ever would like more info or stories from this area of North America, feel free to reach out. Best wishes, Blake. Article below from New Bern Live online news site. A still from the famous Patterson-Gimlin film in California, 67, but our Bigfoot goes back to 1875. Monday, August 16th, 2021. Afghanistan, Delta variant, the border crisis. Oh, this is a newspaper clipping. As a break, we'd like to present you with some news written 146 years ago this month about a Craven County Bigfoot sighting along Kit Swamp in 1875. The article never calls the creature that, but the beast certainly fits all the descriptions, and if there are some stalking around now, they must have ancestors. True? That's for you to decide. From the August 21st, 1875, New Bern Weekly Journal of Commerce. Freaks of a strange animal. Asa Grundy, a colored resident of Kit Swamp, relates a strange and startling incident that occurred in his immediate neighborhood on Thursday, last August 19th, and which has occasioned considerable excitement and alarm among the inhabitants thereabouts. It appears that for some time past, a strange-looking animal has occasionally been seen by different parties, lurking on the outskirts of the forest between sundown and dark. But until recently, no one had been able to approach the stranger near enough to describe its appearance. From the description given by Asa, we concluded to be a nondescript which Barnum and the Great Showman would be glad to possess even at an expense of thousands of dollars. His face and appearance is quite similar to that of the Wanderoo, having a long snowy beard or mane, while its body closely resembles that of a baboon. Though from the knees down, its feet and limbs are in the shape and form almost precisely human. In height, it would measure about 5 feet, while its volume around the chest would eclipse the Cardiff giant. Asa states that this nondescript has for several weeks past been preying upon poultry, garden vegetables, and green corn to an alarming extent. When on Thursday morning last while, his little girl of 5 years was at play in the corn crib with a neighbor's child, and himself at work stripping fodder in the field nearby, he heard the children screaming, the dogs furiously barking, and his wife loudly crying for assistance, whereupon he swiftly ran towards the point from whence the cries proceeded. And at the edge of the cornfield, at face to face, this singular being with the children, one in each paw, making directly towards the woods. Holy shit. At the sudden approach of Asa, being taken by surprise, halted for a moment, and as it partially turned to change its course, a well-directed blow felled it to the earth, and the children were released without injury. But before its capture could be accomplished, it sprang from the ground and, with lightning rapidity, gained the covering of the wood, where all trace of its whereabouts remains as yet a mystery, though the forests for miles around had been thoroughly searched. Much excitement and fear prevails throughout that section, and no mother will again rest in peace until this strange intruder is captured and rendered harmless. We'd suggest that those of our young men fond of adventure muster a company with the view of securing this nondescriptical prize, as the undertaking would, if success crowned their efforts, be both pleasurable and profitable to them. Then, a follow-up from September 11th, 1875, New Bern Weekly Journal of Commerce, Saturday, September 11th, 1875. That strange animal, another attempt to kidnap, frustrated, an exciting chase, capture, and death of the nondescript, perilous adventure of one of the captors, the inhabitants of Kit Swamp and ecstasies. The inhabitants of Kit Swamp are in ecstasies over the capture and death of a strange animal which for some time past has been prowling about the neighborhood, preying upon their gardens, poultry, etc., even attempting to carry off little children, as reported in a recent number, August 21st, of this journal, in which a description of the animal is also given. Through Adam's story, a colored inhabitant of the Kit Swamp, we are enabled to publish the gratifying news of the death of this animal, as well as the particulars concerning its capture, which are both startling and interesting. It appears that our informant's story, in company with two colored neighbors named Eli Sparrow and Frank Handsome, have for some time past been in search for this wily kidnapper. And on Wednesday morning last, for the first time since its attempt to carry off the two children previously mentioned, they espied it lurking on the outskirts of a small clearing owned and worked by a colored woman named Maria Parkley, who, with her two children, the youngest being a boy of about 4 years of age and the elder a girl some 3 or 4 years older, were at the time engaged near the wood gathering blackberries. Story, who was sitting with his companions upon a large pine log near the clearing, was the first to discover the animal, which at some distance off was cautiously wending its way towards the little boy. Then, about 50 yards from his mother and in plain view of the men, at the suggestion of Story, secreted themselves behind the log upon which they had been sitting, and where they could, without being observed, watch the movements of the intruder. As the animal approached the edge of the wood, it noiselessly ascended a tree and peered through the branches towards the clearing for several minutes, and then descended and directed his course towards the little boy, who was then in fair range and within gunshot of the men behind the log with their guns ready to fire at the proper moment. It was evident that the animal intended to kidnap the boy, but the men decided they would not fire upon him until they were quite sure of his intention, as they desired to capture him alive. Slowly and stealthily, the animal crept along through the bushes, occasionally raising himself up to take a survey of the premises, until he had reached within 10 feet of the boy, when, as he arose and was about to spring upon the little fellow, Handsome and Sparrow, aiming at his lower extremities, fired, from the effect which the creature uttered an unearthly yell and fell to the ground. The men rushed toward the wounded creature, but before they could reach him, he was up and with a running limp swiftly made for the woods, where for a time he eluded his pursuers. Though from the blood left behind from his trail was easily traced, yet owing to thick bramble bushes and deep morasses, it was with great difficulty followed. However, they kept up the chase for about 2 hours, when they at last came to a chaparral so dense it was impossible to go through it without the aid of an axe, which they of course did not have with them. Upon examining the premises carefully, they succeeded in finding a small opening close to the ground and just large enough to admit the body of a man by creeping on his hands and knees. The opening was found to be partially covered by an old tree stump, upon which spots of fresh blood were plainly distinguished, and showing conclusively that the wounded animal had passed through the aperture and gained his place of abode. The question now arose as to who would venture to crawl through the opening in the search of the fugitive. When Story volunteered to make the perilous adventure, and with his gun before him, he entered the dark tunnel, not knowing at what moment he might be attacked from within. It just absolutely makes me picture going after a wounded grizzly, which sucks. After crawling a distance of about 20 feet, the muzzle of his gun came in contact with a hard substance, which by a vigorous push, he succeeded in removing and found it to be a short piece of a plank about 2 feet in width, which had been set up edgewise against the inner entrance of the opening and supported by a large pine knot, thus shutting out the light from the tunnel through which he had to pass. Upon the removal of this plank, he crawled out into an open clearing where about 3 or 4 yards square, and the first thing that met his gaze was the animal in question. He immediately called out to his companions, who could now plainly see through the small opening, and they at once started to creep through. But before they could reach the clearing, the animal, or nondescript, seeing no way of escape, made a spring for Story, who had raised his gun in position to fire, and as the animal neared him, he pulled the trigger, and the charge entered his body and fortunately put an end to its existence. The carcass of this wonderful being was carried to the settlement, where hundreds of men, women, and children for miles around had an opportunity of viewing it, and much rejoicing was manifested over its capture and death. Story and Hansen brought the skin of the animal to the city on Thursday, when it was forwarded through Captain Hall of the steamer Gary to Baltimore with the view of having it stuffed for exhibition. And that's it. That's the end of it. That's a holy shit, right? Wow. I wonder how many others have been shot. Well, who knows what that creature was? Who knows? Who has a frickin' clue? I mean, compared to our modern day beings, so-called modern day, the ones everybody seems to be familiar with today, good luck at tracking or sneaking up on any of them. Good luck at getting a bullet in them, basically, most of the time, right? If that's what you're into. This particular creature that is reported in this old news article didn't seem to be the most swift one in the pickle jar, right? I wonder what happened to that skin. It's kind of like Yale, British Columbia. There's an old newspaper article that was made very popular by the late John Green about a young one that some railroad guys caught on the tracks. Apparently he was sleeping at first, made his way up the cliff in a panic and clipped itself out and couldn't go anywhere. And then they worked its way above it, dropped a rock on its head, knocked it out, knocked it down, took it captive, held the boxcar, and the strength of it was noted as unbelievable, and its appetite as well. It didn't make any sounds, and it was thought to have been passed off to a traveling circus guy, I think, bought, and the story disappeared. That was another popular old news article from the 1800s, I believe, or early 1900s. I wonder how many bizarre, unacknowledged beings have come up and been dispatched over the past few hundred years plus, right? Who knows? Who knows? Crazy. Thanks for that share, man. Appreciate it. It's very, very interesting, especially for the people who are possibly living around that same area. I wonder what they've had passed down from their grandparents. All right, here comes another one. This is titled, Many People in the Comments Asked Me to Write In. Salad Steve, I hope you're not allowing too much of the shit going on to occupy much of yourself. I'm trying to keep it to a low roar. Please don't use my name, call me Shane. I have quite a few varied experiences that I have only shared with a very few people. I will see how it goes with the first experiences that are not conducive to what many deem as reality. Excuse me. My family lived on a farm in the Cold Lake area of Alberta in the early 60s and early 70s. It was very close to the boundary of a farmland and the Boreal at the time. Actually, it still is. It wasn't much. A barn, an old log horse barn and collapsed log cabin built by a trapper in the early days, a granary, well house, shop, and machine shed. The house I was born in with my 5 siblings and parents was small, very small. A front porch led into a small living/dining area and a door which led to my parents' bedroom. a small diesel stove which heated 6 feet around it, stairs to a loft where the kids slept, then the kitchen, which was basically a back porch. It was accessed through a doorway off the main room. The drinking water pail would freeze, as did the floor. This lean-to had a division which made it smaller than the front porch. The other side of the kitchen area led to a small back porch, which had a small open window about 20 inches by 30 inches, and then the door to the outside. No running water in this house or heating, just that small diesel stove. We had an outhouse about 40 yards from the house by the shop. Winter's very cold. I was the youngest. Oh my God, I'll bet it was. I spent a lot of time in Alberta, especially during November. So cold, no wind, but the speed, the walking speed was enough to make the breeze air burn your face more. Brutally cold. I couldn't imagine. Winters are very cold. I was the youngest, so while my siblings were at school, I was left at home with my mom during the day. And since my dad is not around much and my mother was very busy from farm work and housework, I was let alone to wander around at 4 and 5 years old. LOL, the shit I got into. It was amazing I survived that. Anyway, I digress. The experiences I mentioned lasted much of my life. This is the second. The first I can't clearly remember. The loft, or upstairs, where the kids slept, was divided into 2 closet-sized bedrooms. My 2 sisters slept in. My oldest sister at 16 years and the next youngest in the family, 2 years older than me. The rest of us 4 boys slept in the loft in 2 beds. As was mentioned, we had an outhouse and the winters were cold. So, my parents put a 5-gallon pail in the back porch for us 2 youngest to use. My older brothers just peed out the window. One night I needed to use it for a crap. Everyone else was asleep. I was sitting on this bucket, and as I was sitting on this bucket, a very large wolf head came through the window. The head filled the window. It looked me straight in the eyes and smiled at me. Now, all this I remember as if it was yesterday, and I'm becoming emotional as I type this. Of course I was in terror. Then we had a conversation in our heads, and he said to me, "Why are you all alone, little man?" I said, "I need to poop and it is cold." Then, "You know I can jump right in there and eat you, and you would not scream because you're terrified." "I can't do nothing," I said in my mind. He then smiled at me again and left. I quickly ran past the window through the door, back up the very steep stairs into bed. Of course, when I tried to tell everyone, which was very hard for me due to a very bad stutter, they told me it was just a dream, but I always knew it wasn't a dream. Years later, I spoke to my sister about it while we were talking about other strange things that happened on that farm. She said she's seen the same. But by then, her parents moved the bucket into the kitchen. I don't know why they did. My mom says it was impossible for a wolf to look through those windows because they were too high off the ground. I told the story to a native hunting guide from the Yukon I met. Damn cats. I told this story to a native hunting guide from the Yukon I met in an old dive bar in a small town many years later. He didn't even blink at it. He told me that the wolf being blessed me. I said, "How the F is that a blessing?" And that I was traumatized for years. He told me that I was blessed with life. Natives have such a way of seeing things. That was the first occurrence. Steve, you're on the right track. The mind speak is real, and reality is not what we think it is, but we could never survive otherwise. And there is another holy shit story. And what a thing to get up in the morning and think about thinking up and lying about and emailing somebody on YouTube, right? I think, what am I going to do today? I'm going to wake up this morning and think up a crazy thing about me shitting in a bucket in an old farmhouse and a wolf head came in and talked to me. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to randomly make that up, seek out a YouTube channel, find the email address, take time out of my day to type it all out and send it in, and laugh my nuts off in the background when it's read. Said no one ever. Right? And if somebody was so emotionally challenged to go out and do something like that, they would not be able to control themselves and stop themselves from emailing or commenting out loud that they did it after they did it, right? And that hasn't happened yet. That was a bit of a babble. Thanks again for that email, man. I hope it helped you get it off your chest. This is obviously the right place to do it. I'm sure there's other ones around somewhere, but this is definitely the right place to come if you're looking for a safe place to share the crazy shit that's really going on. And again, nothing has changed my stance on the large, upright beings with a, quote, large wolf's head on the shoulders, end quote. If that descriptive enters my space, it's game on. It's game on. It's going to be a life or death reaction, and it's going to be game on. And I'm not going to waste a tenth of a second. That's my stance on that particular description, being, and what I firmly believe. That's my gut. It's my gut speaking out right now. Is it my gut or is it my mind? I guess my gut will let me decide if that ever happens. So I guess it must be my mind right now, right? So my mind says right now, kill the fucker. But it doesn't do that with Sasquatch, so what's up with that? Anyway, to you, sir, if you want to email us back more, please do. I'm absolutely curious to hear and learn more, especially from an area that I'm absolutely familiar with, which is where you just described. Crazy, man. Some crazy ass shit has been going on and is going on today. And it's not that common that I've heard of the dog man descriptive coming from Canada. I rarely hear that. I don't think I've heard it from BC yet. Oh no, I heard one from an angler up near Terrace, I believe, told me of a monstrous wolf-like thing that blatantly just walked right across the road in front of his headlights and scared the living shit out of him. I heard of that, came in the last year. But anyway, let's see what else we got. All right, here we go. This is titled Totally Makes Sense Now. Hi, Steve. Like many other members of the amazing family that is continuously growing by the day, I'm so grateful for the time and effort you contribute for the greater good. God bless you and your family and all here in our like-minded individuals. Thank you so much for the kind words. Okay, so I am from southern New Hampshire and grew up hunting, fishing, scouting, whitetail, and totally spending a large portion of my childhood along with my older sister and two younger brothers being led by my dad. He loved the outdoors, and at every opportunity he brought us into the woods. He hunted with a bunch of his best friends who were all firefighters. They went to BC, Casper, Wyoming, and the Catskill Mountains. He took us kids, especially me, for many hunting trips. Well, during the summer of '82, I was working with my dad and a couple other guys clearing land and selling cordwood. This is located in Atkinson, New Hampshire. Well, opening day for archery in New Hampshire, my dad and I had set up tree stands in the land we were clearing. We went in around 4 a.m. to be in our stands for daybreak. Where our stands were located was on the edge of a swamp with a highly used game trail, approximately 25-minute hike in. Well on our way in, it was pitch black with zero sightability. While we were hiking in, my dad stopped and said, "Shh." He shined the light to our immediate right. There were definitely movement and a set of eye shine approximately 4 feet high. He whispered to me, "Hold the light steady." Okay, so yes, he was going to attempt to, well, you know. So, while holding the flashlight, the eyes kept going away and appearing a few feet to the left and lower, and the right all over the place. He got frustrated with me, thinking it was because of me the target was moving all over the place. Just then he said, "Come on, let's go." He grabbed the light from me, took one last look at the spot where the eyes were. When he scanned the area, all of a sudden it was like 10 Christmas lights turned on. Steve, there had to be 6 or 8 sets of eye shine looking back to the direction we had been standing. I never saw my dad act that odd ever. He grabbed my arm and said, "Let's go, stay close, don't ask." After that, we hunted opening day, uneventful. I never even thought about that experience since. After following your channels and seeing the trail cam vid you showed with all those sets of eyes all over the place brought this experience to mind. We know what I saw, and I've heard many unexplained stories from my dad's hunting stories. My name is Ronnie Chiricello. Totally have nothing to hide. Thanks for all you do. Full armor of God. Ooh, there you go. There's another one. And, like I always say, if you go out of your way to, you find this channel and then go out of your way to find the email and then email me to share with everybody here, you know what it was. You know what it was. Crazy. All right, I'm gonna go one more, and then I'm gonna get on with my day. Get caught up here. Hi there, Steve. Excuse me, I've been hauling around and listening to your channel for many months now, and I finally decided to share my story. I actually caught lights on my trail camera on a property that we leased in Montgomery County, Missouri. This is where it all started. Please bear with me. Excuse me. I had a small one-bedroom camper with tiny windows, and the only way out was through the door of the camper. I woke up in the middle of the night to take a leak, and the door would not open. I kicked and tried to open the door, and it would not budge. Luckily, I had my 12-gauge shotgun inside loaded with slugs, and I shot holes through the doorknob until I could kick it open. It was like something was preventing it from opening from the outside. Excuse me. Fast forward to a few years ago when I was turkey hunting up on a ridge across the river. I had a strap-on tree seat where I'd killed many turkey off of. Well, this particular morning I had a stare down with a chipmunk only an arm's length away from me, then some. That's it. All right, that was it. That's all that's on here. Excuse me. So if you are listening, you might want to email the rest of your story in, because I'm quite sure that that's not how you're planning on ending it. From Mo Hunter 68. All right, well, there you go. That's different. That's a different one. All right, let's go. Hold on. Let's get one more out. It's funny, you know, sometimes I'll get not really frustrated, but I just use the word frustrated to describe it. Sometimes I'll just feel like, because sometimes I just don't feel like I'm getting my emails, my unread list down fast enough for me. I just want to get everybody, I just want to get them all heard. I know it's a bit of a crazy task, but I'll get it done. You hold my beer and watch this, I'll get it done. But sometimes I just feel like, okay, screw it, I'm gonna spend the whole day, I'm gonna read nonstop all frickin' day long. Sometimes it's a little hard for me to pull away from doing this, so I'm gonna get one more. This is titled, in caps lock, Unbelievable. Hello, Steve, I'm a loyal listener. I've been for a couple years now. Every night when I get ready for bed, I listen to your post and a couple other channels I support and listen to. Your June 16th post. I'm lying in bed and I just closed my eyes a few minutes or so, and I see a head of what seems to be a Sasquatch. Comes into what would be my left peripheral, not looking at me, but looking past me to my right. In a flash, it's facing me. Then all of a sudden, the face appears to come at me very quickly, and appears to be part ape and part human. It happens so profoundly that I'm startled, and I flinch back and open my eyes. I'm sitting up in bed, and I'm like, what the F? Its face was distorted, almost like it was in transition from one face to another. As I'm trying to rationalize what just occurred, as God as my witness, you begin to tell the story of somebody's email describes exactly what I just experienced. I'm telling you that you described, verbatim, exactly what I experienced just moments after it happened to me. Go back and listen to the post where you're explaining this exact same thing that someone else wrote in about. Absolutely effing incredible. Call it a premonition or a psychic episode. We all know that we have these abilities, and we all know that the true nature of all these amazing gifts and the secrets of how we can naturally and regularly make use of it all has been deliberately kept from us. Personally, I believe the time isn't far off that many of these secrets will be revealed. I can go on, but can't we all? Keep your faith strong, folks. It's needed now more than ever. Steve, I'm a faithful and loyal listener, and I hope to be now your friend. I hope you share this. God bless you. You're loved by many. The wilderness is as good a place to share the truth, but I'm sure you still have to watch your back every single day, as well as others. My prayers are with you, and I respect and admire you deeply. I hope your path stays safe and blessed. Peace be with you, Mike from Central PA. That's pretty crazy. That's got to be a bit of a weird experience, man. That's definitely got to be a weird one. But then again, aren't they all? Everything's weird about this lifetime. Well, most everything is. All right, my mind's starting to go that way. I gotta go. I am now on to the task of trying to catch up on the last 2 days that I just lost. I won't even go over the cluster I went through the past couple days. It's gone, it's done, behind me, moving forward. I gotta go hit the poultry barn, then I have to get some fence posts out there ready to go, and I have got some other things to line up that have 100% everything to do with this here. So, there you go. On closing, surround yourself with people who fan your flames and not piss on your fire, and you'll go way further sooner. All right? Later.
It's fucking awesome. How come we rode around all those other days? What do you mean? Yeah, that we saw is bigger than these ones.